Let me just show you what is happening here right now, because rescue teams are literally going inch by inch throughout this debris, sawing, shoveling, moving whatever they can out of the way. They are looking for evidence here. They are also looking for missing people. Families of 40 different individuals have reported their loved ones as missing. Right now, we have been told that the death toll is at 20 people dead, and you have close to 60 people injured. Half of those injured people in hospital. As we watch today, as these crews just keep working, keep pressing on, they're pulling out bits of fragments left over from missiles, trying to collect evidence. The general prosecutor for Ukraine, she was here this morning. She told us that they believe this could potentially be a crime against humanity. The Russian Federation, the Russian Defense Ministry, they claim that they struck a factory nearby this shopping center that was actually housing weapons provided to Ukraine by both the U.S. and the EU. They claim that once they struck that factory, those munitions then detonated and caused a fire at this shopping center, a shopping center they claim was inoperable. But the numbers of the people who were injured, the video from the moment this attack happened shows you just how busy this area was. It was certainly an open shopping center. We watch more as they go through just stalling everything down. This has been constant for hours and hours now. I spoke to a local official here this morning, and he said that there is a factory sort of just behind this area, but he claimed that it is a factory that has nothing to do with any sort of military objectives or weapons. He says that it is a factory that is essentially working on construction related to roadways. This is a heavy industrial area, and there's a lot of infrastructure related to transportation here. So he claims that that area that was also struck had nothing to do with military action, but Ukrainian officials say 2 missiles directly hit this area, as Russia is claiming that it was just a fire here. And we have really watched, I can show you a little over this way some if we have time. I mean, these are some of the fragments that they're collecting here to try and make that case that this was a direct hit by 2 missiles. Ukrainian officials say they were Russian missiles, and they are literally just going through everything bit by bit. I was asking a local official this morning if they had any sense of how old the victims were here. They said right now they're not sure, but they believe there were at least some teenagers among them.
Our team wanted to see firsthand.
When you're walking in Zelenodolsk, you hear every now and again what sounds like thunder, rolling thunder, but it's not thunder at all. It is the sound of war, artillery going off not far from here. ¿Qué pasó aquí?
Aquí una catástrofe.
Say I'm watching all of this and I notice that something is going wrong with a COVID patient. I can click into their room here, notify the team that works on that floor, bedside team, and communicate with them. Ukrainian officials, they're warning they are outgunned on the eastern front lines. They say that they need more advanced weapons than what they currently have. Those are the images of this little girl. We should remember a life, an entire future stolen, and for what? What crime could a 4-year-old possibly commit? A lot of these bikes, you'll notice people have tied white rags to them. There's 2 on the back of this child seat. They are a symbol people hope that Russian forces will see and know that they're not a threat and allow them to get to safety. If you want to help, don't just send food or water or supplies, because they have a lot of these. This is one of our friends we've been playing soccer with all morning.
Imagine trying to survive a war, but when the rockets fall, you don't hear them. In Kharkiv, missiles landed within 6 miles of the Tokarev's home. Misha is hard of hearing. His wife, Anastasia, is deaf.
Our daughter is hearing, and she would come to us crying. We didn't want her to live in fear.
Help came from a team with Off the Grid Missions, a nonprofit focused on helping deaf and hard of hearing people in disasters around the world. Everyone who works with them is deaf, hard of hearing, or in the case of many translators, CODAs, children of deaf adults. Angela Maria Nardillo is the founder. Artis and Emils are part of her team.
They didn't have a vehicle to get out, so we went there and got them out.
For those who are deaf or hard of hearing, the challenges of life in a war-torn country are multifaceted.
They don't hear the yells to go, or if they're told to go, they know if they go there and there's gunfire, they're not going to hear, and they're going to be the first one targeted.
Off the Grid teams are constantly delivering resources for those who stay.
This is our lights, our solar lights.
Bomb shelters, a vital refuge for so many Ukrainians, are usually dark.
People don't see deaf people. They don't know that when the lights go out, then communication is lost for deaf people. We rely on light. We rely on each other a lot.
But with off-the-grid missions on the ground, deaf people are not only seen, they have friends determined to help them live even in the worst circumstances. Ellison, Barber, NBC News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
In the eastern part of Ukraine, the incredible story tonight of a former UPS driver now inside the war zone, rushing into war-torn regions. At times, the only person willing to rush in and help pull off incredibly dangerous rescues. Ellison Barber is in Ukraine tonight with this story.
Bakhmut, in eastern Ukraine. The latest front in Russia's relentless war. 71,000 people used to live here. Now, this is a no man's land. And it's where one American is carrying out his own operation to help Ukrainians.
That's the building we were just in.
He's documenting scenes like these on social media, where he's known as Bakhmut Brad.
Yeah? Whoa, let me see.
A lone wolf of sorts.
Hello?
Taking rescue calls when others can't or won't.
The two primary jobs are delivering aid and then evacuating people out.
He'll tell you he's just Brad from the States, a guy who's had a lot of jobs, some with emergency medical training. But most recently, he was a UPS truck driver in Maine. Now he's driving routes few would dare to take. Under bombardment at times. And alone.
I'm sort of the last mile guy in a lot of different places.
Roughly speaking, do you have a sense of how many evacuations you've done since you've been here?
Dozens and dozens and dozens. Surely more than 100. I'm bad at counting. Hey, buddy.
All of these videos are Brad's.
Probably went up and over that thing.
Snapshots of a humanitarian mission few back home could imagine.
I've just gotten a call about a wounded person next door to an evacuation that happened recently.
This was Brad's Thanksgiving.
Hello?
At nightfall, a call came from eastern Bakhmut. He was about to begin one of his most daring rescues.
Hello.
69-year-old Tatiana Lerikova was desperately trying to save her husband Valentin, who was injured in an explosion. She tried to stop the bleeding with tourniquets and kitchen rags.
Doctor, we have to go to a doctor now.
Brad tried carrying Valentin on his back, but couldn't do it alone. So he pulled him down every step to the temporary safety of his Toyota Land Cruiser. Finally, after a harrowing drive, they made it to a hospital. There was little time to spare. Today, Tatiana is in western Ukraine. The memories of that night still haunt her, except for one.
Suddenly, out of nowhere, a voice on the street. Hey, hey, hey! A yell.
Her husband of 48 years is alive. And she says it's only because of Brad.
He is an unreal human. Unreal. He is just an angel. I'm serious. It is impossible for a person. It is impossible for an ordinary person. I just thought that an angel had come.
Brad is still in eastern Ukraine.
Did you expect to be here as long as you have been?
No, I did not. No, I thought I probably would have already been back by now.
And he says he's not going anywhere.
There are a lot of people who come in and go back out.
Yeah, I feel on the hook. I mean, I keep looking at the need, I keep looking at the grief, I keep looking at the freezing cold and the emaciated animals and the medical injuries and on and on and on.
His reason for staying is simple. Keeping his operation going is not. He runs off of donations and a belief encapsulated in the words of a Ukrainian poet, Ilya Kaminsky.
And when they bombed other people's houses, we protested, but not enough. We opposed them, but not enough. In the country of money, our great country of money, we forgive us, live happily during the war.
Those words, he says, are a call to action. Each delivery, each rescue, his protest against Russia's war.
Ellison Barber joins us tonight from Kyiv. Ellison, this story and that footage, it's pretty incredible. How do people reach Brad? I mean, I know there's not like a 911 system, and he's an American. How are they able to contact him to ask him for help?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little complex. He works with different U.S.-based humanitarian groups. We actually first got in touch with him by speaking with a U.S.-based humanitarian group called Assist Ukraine. But at other times, you know, he is really just getting these calls by word of mouth. That specific rescue you saw in the piece on Thanksgiving Day, that was a perfect example. The woman who he rescued, she told us that she had picked up her phone, tried to call a bunch of different numbers to get help. Either the calls weren't going through because the cell service was down, or just no one was picking up. Ultimately, she said she ended up texting with the daughter of the mayor of Bakhmut, and the daughter somehow had Brad's number, gave it to her through WhatsApp, and then she reached out to Brad and sent him a text, gave him a call saying, I need help, and he came. So a lot of times he is just getting these calls out of the blue because he's been here for so long that people just know who he is. I mean, at times he's traveling into Bakhmut solely to make donations. He's picking up things that have been sent from the United States and then delivering them on the ground, getting in, getting out very quickly. But every time he does that, he's taking a risk. This city, Bakhmut, it is the site of some of the fiercest battles right now. Just 4 days ago, President Zelensky described this city as burnt ruins. The population there, it used to be 71,000. Now the regional mayor says it is less than 12,000. Tom?
And Ellison, do we know how long he plans on staying there? And does he have the means to keep helping people throughout this war?
I mean, look, he's always trying to raise money, raise donations. When we sat down with him, he needed money to replace the tires on the front of his car. He sort of takes this day by day, but he told us he really feels compelled to do this. And he didn't think he would stay as long as he has, but he feels like he can't go home. And for now, Tom, he has no clear end date.
This morning, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees announced the war in Ukraine has led to the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Many of those refugees are women and children, as men aged 18 to 60 have been required to stay behind and fight for Ukraine. Most of those fleeing the war are crossing into Poland, where officials are working around the clock to process and care for their neighbors to the east. NBC's Ellison Barber has our Sunday focus from the Polish border with Ukraine.
More than 1.5 million refugees have fled Ukraine since Russia invaded 10 days ago.
But I can't go back because there is no place to go back anymore.
The UN says nearly half of the people fleeing Ukraine are children.
I have my mother, I have a little sister, dog, and father says that we must go to the Poland because it's too dangerous to stay in Ukraine.
People are fleeing from every corner of Ukraine, pouring into neighboring countries by the thousands, the largest number crossing into Poland, according to the UN Refugee Agency.
What are your friends saying to you? I mean, what is it like right now to be a teenager in Ukraine?
Well, like they really hate Russians a lot. Like they came, like Russians, they came to occupy another country. Like they are really angry with Russia, and of course they are also scared.
Using a directive established after the Balkan Wars, the European Union unanimously agreed to offer temporary protection to Ukrainian refugees and third country nationals with protected status or permanent residency in Ukraine. It gives Ukrainian refugees access to housing, education, other social welfare programs. They don't have to file individual asylum claims, and it can be extended up to 3 years. Ludmila believes Ukraine will win this fight, but at 83, she fears this is the last she'll see of her beloved Ukraine.
But it's so painful in my heart.
We've been to 6 crossings on the Polish-Ukrainian border and have seen the best of humanity. Kindness, bravery.
I brought my daughter to a safe place, to Czech Republic, and my parents, and now returning back to help my husband and my friends in this fight.
8-year-old Angelina is trying to stay warm as her mother figures out where they'll go next. They just made it to Poland. Her brother and father stayed in Ukraine to fight.
You're very brave. Did you know
Ти
you were
дуже
so
смілива.
brave?
Ти знаєш, що ти дуже смілива? Yes, I am.
What do you want other kids who are
Що ти
watching
хочеш? I want them not to be afraid and not to worry. I want them to listen to their parents because their parents love them more than anyone else.
She is so brave. And Ellison joins me now live from Poland along the Ukrainian border. Ellison, good morning. It's great to see you. We heard this morning, as I said, from the UN Commissioner on Refugees, reaching back to World War II for a comparison to what you've been seeing there at the border. So how does this crisis, by the way, only days old, already measure historically?
I mean, the numbers, the time, it's almost incomprehensible. We are at just one makeshift refugee camp, and we have seen a steady flow of people coming and going, picking up basic necessities, grabbing some food, sitting in tents to try and stay warm before they figure out where they go next, where they go from here. The UN said in the first 7 days of this war, 1 million people fled Ukraine. When you look back at other crises, other refugee crises, like Venezuela. In 2014, the UN talked about how 1 million people had fled the country in 7 months, and that was a lot. You look at Syria, fighting there began in 2011. In 2013, that's when the UN said that 1 million refugees had fled the country. Obviously, the circumstances around those 3 are different. You have a situation here where neighboring countries have opened their arms to refugees, and that unfortunately did not happen in other situations. But in terms of the numbers, 1 million refugees in just 7 days, it is staggering and arguably in modern times, completely unprecedented. Willie?
And already up to 1.5 million. As you said, though, the best of humanity standing up to the worst of it on the other side of the border. Ellison Barber, a great report again from Poland this morning. Thanks so much, Ellison.
Over the last 3 weeks, more than 1.5 million children have fled Ukraine, a staggering number, especially when you think about it in these terms, that nearly 1 child every second has left since the start of the war, according to UNICEF. They've been forced to suddenly say goodbye to their homes, their friends, to leave everything they know behind with no sense of when they'll be able to go back. The children of war have captured the world's attention for their bravery and their resilience. NBC's Ellison Barber shares some of their stories in our Sunday Spotlight.
When you watch children playing in the makeshift refugee shelters now scattered across Poland, you see a lot of smiles. Talk to the same kids, and you get the sense that they laugh and play, not because they're unaware of the horrors they survived, but because it is their way to survive those moments in hell.
What is war?
So the war is when everybody is in a battle and they're fighting. And we saw equipment, we saw vehicles, and then I don't remember anything.
It's a river of blood. It's loud noises. It's terrible.
It's hard to talk about scary things, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We don't even have our house anymore.
Over 3 million refugees have fled Ukraine.
What's her name? Tatiana.
UNICEF says half are children, like Margarita and her sister Zlata.
Before all of this started, what were you doing?
До того,
What were
как
your
это все началось, чем ты занималась? Какие у тебя были планы? My plans were to go out, to hang out, to study, but not to leave. I wanted to be an actress.
How have you changed in the last 2 weeks? Do you feel
Ты
like you've had to
как-нибудь
grow up?
изменилась? I started to value everything I have as much as I never did before. I worry about everyone now. I worry about my relatives, my loved ones.
For the older kids, there's a determination, a necessity to help.
I'm looking for my little sister and my little brother, try to help them.
Has that been hard? Because you're just a kid too.
Not so hard.
Pain, instead of fueling hate, galvanizing compassion.
How do you do that? How do you find love
Как у тебя
in the
получается,
middle
как тебе
of all
удается
this?
находить эти вот хорошие? Because you
было
remember
этого времени,
what
ты
you had
понимаешь, что ты
before
проживал
the
очень
war.
хорошее
You
время,
remember what kind of
вот
good life
начинаешь
you
скучать
had,
за этим
and you
временем.
start missing
Ты
it a
понимаешь,
lot.
что
What do you want other kids who might watch
Ты
this?
хочешь что-нибудь
What do you
сказать
want them to
другим
know?
детям, которые сейчас I want to wish them happiness, and I want them to live good life and clear, safe sky over their heads.
For Sunday Today, Ellison Barber, Arłamów, Poland.
Our thanks to Ellison Barber.